All right. Also want to make sure you're not looking up our noses. Nobody needs to see up my nose. I just really don't feel like showing you guys the insides of my nostrils tonight. All right, gang. It is already week 6 of the functional effect optimization group and week 1 of having Dr. Reynolds with us.
I
So
made it, guys. I made it.
he's here. We're really excited to have him. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is going to be another framework that you're going to be able to use to help continue to streamline your way towards becoming the person that you want to become. And over the last 5 weeks, we've talked about awareness, we've talked about breaking down your goals, we've talked about aligning with your identity and your values, taking imperfect action, and learning how to return to your baseline when life interrupts your rhythm, when things are going really right, and then all of a sudden they start going really wrong. Today, though, what we're going to talk about is something that quietly determines whether all of that hard work actually comes to fruition. It's your environment. And here's the truth about environment: willpower is unreliable, motivation fluctuates, and your energy is going to shift. Life gets busy and stuff happens. It happens in our life, and it's bound to happen in your life. But systems create stability. Systems create predictability. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Tonight, we're going to explore how your physical environment, your schedule, and even your psychological environment or the landscape of your mindset is going to be either supporting your consistency or quietly sabotaging it. This isn't about blaming yourself or pointing the finger or figuring out the root of your problem. But what tonight is about is figuring out how to design your life in a way that makes showing up easier. And that's what we're going to be breaking down tonight. So, before we get started, I want to talk a little bit more. We get started into the system that we're going to unpack for you tonight. The first thing that we want to talk about tonight is why willpower fails. And I want to let Tyler kick off this portion because I think that he's a really great one to talk about the idea of like motivation versus systems, because realistically, systems is the opposite of motivation. And I'm going to let him explain a little bit more about that.
So, motivation is truly an emotional thing, which our emotions are going to go up and they're going to go down and they could be flat. So, that's not a very good scale to work off of and something that's going to have long term sustainability. So, when you can create a system or having discipline of having, you know what, I'll give you an example. Workouts are scheduled for me. I pretty much know every day of the week that I'm going to work out or I'm not going to work out. And is it perfect? Absolutely not. It's not about being perfect, but
Last
90%
one.
of the time, I'm going to be able to say, hey, I'm going to hit that pretty well. And it's good if some days are not so great workouts, other days, great workouts. But the discipline that I created for that weekly schedule is and really what I'm doing is I'm creating a system for success.
Yeah. And truly, at the end of the day, when it comes to willpower, you end up, if you're relying on willpower, you are going to end up falling to your lack of systems. Um, and you won't end up rising to your goals. And you'll end up lathering, rinsing, and repeating that same cycle of jumping to the new program, having the same root problem be a lack of systems, and then place the blame on the program instead of on the lack of systems around it. Um, and that's what we see a lot within our practice. We've been doing this collectively a really long time. This is my 24th year doing this, and this
My
is,
19th.
yeah. So, needless to say, we have a lot of years in the trenches of watching people go through this cycle. And we understand how frustrating it is because we've not only watched our clients go through the cycle, but we've also fallen victim to the cycle ourselves. Because we're not, like I said, I say this every call. I'm not here preaching from a place of being the all knowing guru. I'm preaching from a place of being the person who's experienced it and coached other people to the other side of it. And I don't take that position lightly. So when we talk about environment, people think just about their immediate surroundings. They think about maybe the home that they're in or their work environment. But when we really unpack environment really breaks down into three key sectors. You have your physical environment, which is going to be everything that's visible in your environment. So Tyler is in my physical environment, this table. If you're at work, it's going to be your coworkers, your office environment, what's accessible to you, in your physical environment, what's prepped in your physical environment. And what that comes down to is having a layout and a preparatory system put into place. Like, again, let's circle back to the workout example. If you want to be properly prepped for your workouts, what pieces does that include? Well, it includes being properly fueled. So that's going to include your kitchen environment and your kitchen layout. That's going to include your gym bag and what's in your gym bag, what clothes you're wearing, your water bottle, whether or not you have that filled, whether or not you put electrolytes in it. That physical environment is going to help dictate or sabotage your success. So that's just one facet of your environment, is the physical. The next facet, which something that Tyler has gotten really good at fine tuning and streamlining in our life, is our schedule and our time environment. So I want you to talk a little bit more about the calendar, the idea of scheduling, the idea of making your calendar your slave, essentially.
There's definitely a calming feeling when you have a great calendar. Now, Sarah's really good at calendars. We have it right over here in our house, and she actually draws it out for 2 months at a time and has all our things that are going on in her life, the kids' activities, holidays, and she actually makes it look really cool. So, but when it comes to the calendar of maybe your day in a smaller sense, is having that the night before or maybe early in the morning on that day, you're planning that out. You're looking at it. And when you can say, hey, I have this to do, this to do, this to do, this to, maybe you're using a journal, maybe you're using your phone and looking at it, and you're looking at your objectives of the day, which is just your calendar for the day. Or maybe you're going to look at a little bigger style and look at the week and say, hey, okay, what do I have to get done this week to have a great week to be successful? So when you can plan these things out and build upon them, you're going to be much more successful, because the thing is, life happens. But when you have a great structure, you're not going to deviate as far from it, because you know what's going to happen. You can get back on track really fast. And I see a lot of people, they kind of throw it all away. If one thing happens, oh, I have a sick kid. Oh, I have, this thing at work kind of pushed me over. Maybe it happens 1 or 2 days in a row. And then the week's like, I can't, the week's done. I can't do this anymore.
So I think that there's something really important in what Tyler just said, is that when you do keep a schedule and when you do have a visual representation of what is going on in your week, you're able to much more clearly see whether or not you've given yourself any margin.
Yeah.
Because if you value time, and if you value recovery, and if you value rest, and you write your schedule out for the week, and you see when you write it out for the week, after you've put all of those working pieces into place, that you don't have any downtime to rest or recover or sleep, for that matter, how are you going to be able to align your environment to your goals? It becomes very challenging, is the answer. And whether or not you're scheduling all your things, if you're not leaving margin or you're not leaving yourself some capacity, to have something happen in your life, that's the person that when one extra thing happens, that their life seemingly turns upside down because it does.
I think that's a great thermometer check for people, right? So, because I think we've all been there.
I
When we're
oh,
like,
I know I have.
yeah, right. And you have like that one thing and it kind of puts you over the edge. I think that's a good check to say, like, all right, guys, like, I'm doing too much. I have too much on my plate. Maybe I need to subtract a thing or two to give myself a little margin. And a lot, I get that. That's difficult to do because that involves, he has a family, that could involve saying, hey, my husband, my wife, my kids may need to have some more responsibilities because I'm just overwhelmed. And we see that quite often with our clientele.
Well, and then it can show up as a variety of different things in the person, like in your partner. It can show up as being short with the other person. It can show up as being touched out if you're with your kids. Like if one more person grabs at me or asks me for something or pulls at me or wants to hug me, you just want to run away and hide because your nervous system is completely fried. And that's where you know that you have scheduled yourself into a place of being burned out. And that is very common to see in high achieving people. It is so, so common to hear from our clients that sit down across from us that they have every good intention in the world by the things they're saying yes to. They don't have ill intent, but they end up driving their health into a dumpster fire because they have the inability to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a schedule with enough margin to allow you to align yourself to your values is a really important part of that schedule and time environment. The third part of environment is going to be your psychological environment or the landscape of your mindset. So, and this isn't just talking about the way you think, because yes, we're talking about the way you think and we're talking about mindset in the more cerebral sense, but we're talking about the things specifically that you are exposing your mindset to. And I think right now might be an appropriate time to address this topic because, as everybody knows, there is a lot of things on the internet right now that can send you into a tailspin. I need to go no further than that. But how much you expose yourself to and how much you immerse yourself or how continuously you expose yourself to these things is up to you. Choosing outrage is a choice. You don't have to be happy with what is going on in the world, but choosing to be outraged every day is counterproductive to someone who has a desire to be in good health. And it creates a very poor physical environment. So our beliefs or mindset dictates our actions, and our actions are ultimately what dictates our results.
Yeah.
So being mindful of the landscape of your mind and what you expose yourself to can come down to mindfully shutting off your notifications on your phone at a certain time of day.
Mm-hmm.
What is the software that you use on your phone that
Well, I'm an Android user. So
I am not?
I'm not an Apple user like someone I know. No, so I use a Samsung. And so it actually has a digital well-being feature where when it comes to my social media, once I'm over a certain time, it actually grays it out and I can't go on it. I think it might give me like an extra, like you want 5 more minutes? I think you can get that. Then after that, you can't get any. So it's a really good tool because if we kind of go into you go on this app and then you go on this app and you jump to this thing and you're like, oh, I got to get on my phone for this. And all of a sudden you're on TikTok or something. And it's been 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it's been. And that's time you can't get back. And you could have been very productive. You could have gave yourself some margin with that time. So yeah, there's tools to use to control your environment a little bit more.
And preventing yourself from seeing the things that produce those feelings of outrage, that's very preventable by not exposing yourself to social media for longer than necessary. So if you have to get on and post for whatever reason, get on and post. engage at whatever level you need to engage with, and then get off of social media. There's no need to be on and off all day if you have no need to be on and off all day. So there's ways to control that environment that just involve you setting some healthy boundaries around the way that you expose yourself. But beyond social media, beyond the notifications on your phone, I think that there's something way more crucial and way more important that we need to talk about. And it's everybody in this room has done this at some point, myself included. Accepting negative talk or using it on ourselves.
And it can be negative talk is really interesting because the amount of positive talk, because there was a study done, like, is it better to have a bunch of positive talk or the elimination of negative self-talk? And it's easily the elimination of negative self-talk. It takes about 7 to 8 times a positive talk to overcome a negative talk. So you can really see, I mean, it's super powerful. So that what you're doing is you're creating programming in your own nervous system that's negative. And it is extremely hard to overcome.
It is. And we have the belief with ourselves, with our clients, that you can speak life into your goals or you can speak death into your goals. And I want you to think for a second, and you do not need to put anything in the chat. Just, I want you to think for a second, what is your regular response to yourself when you make a mistake? What do you say to yourself? Oh, that's okay. You'll do better next time. I doubt it. If I know any of you in this room right now, myself included, because that's not what my self dialogue sounds like most of the time. It's not self soothing, it's highly self critical. But we have the opportunity every day, every time we make a mistake, to turn that dialogue around. But it takes consistent, intentional effort. And it starts by understanding what that current dialogue does sound like. So I encourage all of you to get really curious. Next time you do make a mistake, stop yourself in the moment and reflect on what you catch yourself saying to yourself. Because mistakes are inevitable, but the way that you choose to react to those mistakes is not.
Yeah, and to go even a little further on that, when things get hard, right? You're not necessarily making a mistake, it's just getting difficult. And I'll give you an example because Adrian's in the room right now, and we're getting ready for a 50-mile race. And sometimes the training for this is downright awful. And I'll give you an example that happened today. I had about 2 miles left of my run, and I'm getting tired because it was on an incline. And I talked to myself, and I probably sound a little nutty. But I was like, you got this, Tyler, you got this. I'm like, I'm hungry. This is what I was saying. I probably sound crazy, but I was like, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I want it. I'm hungry. And but for me, just saying that, I'm having that conversation, and it's making it easier. I also smile when I train really hard, when I'm pushing myself, because I'm tricking my mind. Because I am not feeling good. It hurts to push myself. But when you smile, your body says like, "Oh, I'm okay," but really I'm struggling. But it actually makes it much easier because my mind is going to stop me before my body will.
Very true. So, to wrap up that last portion of what makes up environment, who you surround yourself with on a day to day basis is going to have a large impact on your psychological environment. And arguably, at our gym, Functional Effect, that's one of the things I love most about our gym is the mental environment that we create for our clients. Not just the cool programming, not the beauty of the physical space that we have, but it's that psychological mental environment that we create for our clients that allows them to step into the best version of themselves and to anchor new habits and behaviors themselves with the way that they speak to themselves and the way that they interact with other people, even because we built our gym around the idea of community. So, to wrap all of this up, with all of this that we just covered, if I were to take a look at your calendar right now, would I be able to tell by what is on your calendar and what you have in your schedule what your goals are? You don't have to answer this in the chat, but feel free to answer this in the chat. Would I be able to tell what your goals are if I looked in your calendar? Because if the answer is no, this is where you have the opportunity to step up your game with your systems and to get more specific with your calendar. And that is how simple tightening your structure can be. It does not have to be a crazy, in-depth, exotic formula. It looks as simple as writing everything down that you want to get done for the week down to the minute and seeing if you have left enough time to have margin to exist and be human. It's a wild concept, I know, but it works. And if you aren't already doing it, I don't care if you're doing it on a piece of paper with a pen and a ruler to make nice, pretty margins. I don't care if you're doing it like I did. I painted a wall in our home with chalkboard paint, and I use chalkboard markers every month to draw out 2 months worth of our schedule. And we put everything in that schedule. Why? Because we can see if we have overlapping priorities. If you are a tech person, and you want to use a Google Calendar and sync up with your partner and align everyone's activities, you will be able to accomplish the same thing for those of you who are tech savvy. I just happen to be a paper, pencil, blackboard kind of a girl.
Always has been.
So whatever method you choose, it doesn't matter. I'm not here to preach on my soapbox of blackboard and chalk or blackboard paper and pencil. But what I am here to preach is the power of a schedule, the power of specificity, and the power of intention. Because we used to live our life a little bit more by the seat of our pants. And it wasn't because we didn't have good intentions. It's just because we didn't yet have our systems developed. But as we tightened our systems and as we got them more and more developed, our life got significantly easier with more structure, because I think a big misconception that people have is that the more I structure my life, the more handcuffed I am. No, my friend. The more freedom you create. The more freedom you create. You create flexibility and freedom within structure.
Yeah, so we look at on a yearly schedule. We actually look at, like, I have stuff called non-negotiables. There's several things throughout the year that Sarah and I want to do, or she personally wants to do, or I personally want to do, or the kids want to do. And so they're kind of like the big rocks of our year. And they're in our schedule. And we work around that. And I think it's really important. I don't want to go through a year and miss the things that I really want to do because I didn't schedule it. And so we look always right at the beginning of the year, we look at the whole year and we figure out these are the big things that we want to do this year.
So off of that, what I want to walk you through is the framework that you can use to do this same kind of self-audit. And we're going to call it the AAA framework just to be sassy, but it's audit, adjust, and automate. And the audit part is really quite simple. All you have to do is think about these couple questions. What in my physical space makes achieving my goals harder? Or what in my physical space is sabotaging me? That's another way of saying it, right? What in my schedule creates friction with achieving my goals? That's another good one, right? What digital or mental noise is draining my ability to create consistency? And the fourth question I want you to ask yourself is, where am I relying on willpower over structure? What part of my life am I relying on willpower over structure? There's a lot of potentials here that's not just in fitness, right? It can be a lot of different things. Just reflect on those four things, because that is the audit. That is where we need to notice where the friction's happening. That is where we start understanding what you are doing or what is happening in your world that is making this process harder than it needs to be.
Because if you can identify some, I use the word like low hanging fruit, like you're like, that's a problem, and I could easily fix that. Oh man, and then you course correct that, you could make a pretty large jump in your schedule and make
Well,
it
and
easy.
if you think about it like this, we love the idea of tackling one small problem at a time, or one problem at a time. And if you can do that one thing at a time, 1 week at a time, in 12 weeks, you've developed 12 new habits potentially, depending on who you are and the speed at which you can conform to a new habit, right? It's just the potential is limitless when you attack change in the right way. So the second part of the AAA framework is the adjustment. So after you've done the audit, you've noticed the friction, you can see where you're making it harder than it needs to be. Now it's time to start making it easier. But how much easier do we make it? When we have, let's use again, workouts. Our ideal client is working out somewhere in the ballpark of 3 to 4 times a week. But if I have somebody who comes to me working out 0 times a week, I'm not necessarily asking them to work out 4 times. I might start them out working out once or twice. Why? Because my goal is to work on getting my client about 10% better.
Which is very common. Like that is something that we see. Like, if I can get someone 2 days a week and be very consistent, and maybe sneak a third or something like that in there. And some people it is one, absolutely. Um, you're building upon that habit, and it's easy to jump like, oh, I can just come in an extra day, tweak their schedule. Much easier. Very hard to go from that. I don't work out at all. I've never worked out in my life to 4 or 5 days a week. That never works. It never works.
Or even using something as tangible as a bicep curl. If you're starting out using 5 pound weights for your bicep curls, I'm not going to throw a 50 pound dumbbell in your hand and go, hey, go do 10 reps.
Yeah.
It's incremental change that makes the biggest impact over time. So our goal is to look at what we can do to make your goal, or to make your ability to achieve said goal 10% easier than you're making it right now. So no overhauls, no dramatic changes, but something as simple as making sure that you're putting some protein at eye level so that you have a snack that is protein forward in the afternoon, instead of grabbing the carby based snack that you tend to reach for. It's something that simple. That's a 10% improvement. Something as simple as scheduling your workouts for the week, like what Tyler talked about earlier. That is 10% better. Turning off notifications on your phone after 8 p.m. and not allowing yourself to be pinged by your emails until 10:30 at night. That's 10% better. I want you to think about, what does your 10% better right now look like? Because every one of you has one of those low hanging fruit that could be your potential 10%. But there's something that you could work on starting tonight. I don't know what that thing is, but you do. The last part of the AAA framework, which is probably my favorite part, because we've been working on doing a lot more of this within our business and our life this year, is the automate portion of the AAA. So the goal of automation is to what? Reduce decisions. Reduce decision fatigue.
It's that simple.
The average human makes somewhere in the ballpark of 35,000 decisions a day, which is wild to think about. That's another decision. But you're making a lot of decisions a day. And over 300 of those decisions are just around food, which is wild to think about, right? Reducing decisions, reducing your amount of thoughts that you have to have in a day is going to conserve energy. And energy conservation equals you having the bandwidth to show up as the version of yourself that you want to be. Not the I don't have time version, not the I'm so tired version. So, how do we put some automation into our life? What are some of the ways that we've done it in our life?
Cool. All right. So automations of our life. I think I look at this is how I look at it, like at least I right now my head's at the business. So one of the things that because it's not sexy, when people come into the gym, they know what they're doing. They know that they're going to be foam rolling, doing soft tissue work. They know exactly they're doing their A or their B day. Right. They know exactly what they're doing. And because there's a thought process like it's workout of the day. You don't know what you're doing. Like that's
muscle confusion,
which doesn't exist. That's not a real thing.
That's my favorite.
But in the thing is when you have these pre-decisions, like when I wake up in the morning, I'm a kind of I eat about the same thing for breakfast every day. My workouts are not like overly sexy, overly interesting. I have a plan that I stick to that's macro, like could be anywhere from 6 weeks up to 20 weeks, depending on what I'm doing. Like the only person that's going to screw this up is my own ego. Like I'm the only one who's going to mess this up because I'm like, oh, this is kind of boring.
But I mean, when we talk about automation, we've automated our grocery list. We get basically the same groceries every week. We have our calendar automated. We eat the same breakfast every morning. I mean, we automate our life to a point where we pretty much know what's going to happen every single day to where it is very unsexy.
Yeah.
But it gives us enough flexibility because of the bandwidth it creates where we have built-in flexibility and we have some bandwidth that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Which like when you're going through different seasons of life too, your schedule changes, right? And I'm kind of at this point right now. I'm in this like different role in the company, and I'm fine. I had to figure out my own schedule again. I had to figure out, and I'm still not 100% on it, but I'm close. But figuring out exactly the automation of my week, and I had to tweak it. So don't be worried about having to make shifts in your schedule.
Once you create the plan, don't be afraid to revise the plan.
Yeah.
If you have a new environment or a new set of demands, the plan just needs to be revised. But if you have a baseline plan with a baseline set of non-negotiables that are based off of your values and all of the work that we've been doing over the last 5 weeks. And if you haven't been with us over the last 5 weeks, go back and watch the videos because it's good stuff. And it will help build you up to this point where you feel comfortable doing this exercise. But if you've been with us for the last 5 weeks, you should feel comfortable diving into this and really having an honest self-assessment of your schedule and saying, hey, am I the definition of doing too much? Because you, me, Tyler, ultimately get to dictate what happens next in our life. But often we are in a position where we feel prisoner to the world happening around us or to us instead of us dictating and saying yes or no to the things that either align or don't align with what we're trying to do with our life. And that's why it's so important to circle back to that core value exercise that if you have not yet done it, no judgment, but if you have not yet done it, it is going to help you dial in to this particular exercise and do that environmental audit through a much clearer lens.
Because then you're going to find out how you want to live your life and what you actually want.
Absolutely. So last question I have for you guys before we close out for tonight. What is one thing that you could adjust this week that could make your consistency 10% better? I want you to drop it in the chat if you're comfortable, because I'd love to see your responses. But if you're not, keep it to yourself. But I want you to think about it and commit to that 10% better. And I want you to spell out explicitly, what does that mean? What does 10% better actually translate to? Because the more specific you can become, the more momentum that creates. So I want to leave you with this. Your consistency is not a character flaw. It's a design issue. And when your environment supports you, showing up feels natural. When it doesn't, everything feels a whole heck of a lot harder than it needs to. This week, my goal for you is to not to try to be more disciplined. My goal is for you to try to make your lives easier and more automated. Audit your environment. Adjust one thing. Make it 10% better and automate every single thing that you can in your environment. Systems, at the end of the day, are the answer, not your willpower. As always, it is a pleasure to be here with you. We will be here same time, same place next week, and we will be furthering this discussion even more. Always feel free to share the link with your friends and your family. Remember, this group is here for our greater global health and wellness community because our goal here is to impact lives and to help teach you guys how to live lives that the kind of lives that you deserve because you deserve to feel your best. So until next time, keep doing the work and we'll see you then. Bye.